right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today with I'm Debbie Corwin with TA Toolkit, and our guest today is Amarilis Parga, and she has been a travel agent for, I didn't ask you, how many years, Amarilis?
I started in 2019, right before COVID.
Gosh, I thought it was about 3 years, so 3, 4 years. So, and Amaryllis has what I think is a unique outlook on travel, and I just love what she thinks and what she does with it. And I'm looking forward to her sharing that with us today, and to giving you some ideas of how you can help your clients have a cultural travel experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate you having me on. So yes, my name is Amarilis Parga. Actually, in social settings, you will see me as Amarilis Parga. My maiden name is Amarilis Correa. I have not changed over in my business because one, the paperwork is too much for me. so I'm going to stay from a business perspective. I'm going to keep my maiden last name, but you will see me as both. So yes, my agency focuses on curating culturally immersive experiences for my clients, both groups and individuals alike. When I first started my agency, I think I was doing what a lot of agents do initially, which is just kind of servicing anybody who came. And then COVID hit, and I had some time to kind of like sit back, think about things, and say to myself, okay, how do I want to go about doing this? And I decided that I really wanted to focus on the cultural aspects of travel, simply because it had played such a profound role in my life in terms of changing my life, changing my perspective on the world, changing my perspective just in general. Like, I had the opportunity to live in Madagascar. I had like a mini midlife crisis, and I left corporate America, and I went to go serve in the Peace Corps for a couple of years in Madagascar. And during that time, I was really taken out of my comfort zone. And I had been living in New York City. So I went from New York City, like this bustling city where you can get anything you want at any point in time, to like this rural town in Madagascar, in southern Madagascar, called Ambulumbe. Like, it was like this little town and miles and miles and miles of nothing around it. And I was thrust into this like just this world that was culturally different from anything I had experienced. And through that process, I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about what were my values, what was important to me, what wasn't important to me. Up until that point, I had been working and living in New York City. My goal was to like move up the corporate ladder and, get the most expensive bags. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's what I was focused on in that time. And then when I went to Madagascar, just seeing how the people lived, how just wholesome they were, in terms of like, they'll give you their shirt off their back, right? These are some of the poorest people in the world. And yet, sorry, my dog is going crazy because
I was thinking your husband came home, didn't he?
And I got to really immerse myself in that culture and learn just what their value systems are, their etiquette, what they believe in, family being central to everything that they do. And I think through that process, I learned that despite cultural differences in the world, we're actually more alike than we are different. And I think that sometimes we get caught up. It's great to learn about the cultures and why they do what they do, but at the core of who we are as humans, we're a lot more alike than we are different, right? And those differences just help you kind of value each other a little bit more in some ways, as you find it exciting and you learn new things, and it opens you up to different ideas or perspectives that you may have not considered before, right? And so I came back to the States. I was living in New York, and then I got an opportunity to go live in Mexico, and I was living in Mexico City for several years, working there. And I did a lot of travel through Latin America because I was managing accounts across all of Latin America. And again, I was exposed to different cultures, different ideas. And ironically, this time it was a little different because I am a Latina, I am Puerto Rican, but then traveling through Latin America. And I think sometimes people think that we're all very similar. And while we all speak one language, and even then things are very different from a language perspective, culturally, we're very, very different. We eat different foods, we value different things. And so I started seeing that as well and learning about that. And it was just a moment in my history, like in my past, where I really got to see things differently. And so fast forward, I decide I'm going to start an agency. COVID hits, I have time to kind of reflect versus being just trying to get the agency up and running. And I'm like, I'm going to focus on the cultural aspect of travel. The reason being that there's a magic to it that you don't, much like if you're focusing on milestone travel or destination weddings, there's an emotional connection there that ties you to your client. So there's a magic to it. It's cultural travel is not like just a trend. It's this opportunity, like I said, to create this emotional connection between your client and their destination. It transforms them in a way that I've experienced, and I haven't seen anything else do it that way. The blog that I was able to do for your newsletter, I talk about my sister. My sister never has really traveled internationally. She went to Egypt with me in June, and this was her first big international trip. And it changed her completely. Like the experience, the cultural interactions with the local people, doing some things that she was like, I would have never dreamt this. It transformed her in a way where now she's like, I need to do this regularly. Like I need to travel. I want my kids to experience this because I think it's going to change them as a person as well. And so when you're able to forge that type of emotional experience in a client, they will be your client forever. Like there is no if or ands or buts about it. They will always come back to you because that memory is going to constantly live in their head, right? And that emotion, that high that they get from that, they will relive it every time they think about that memory. And so for me, it just made sense. Like I was like, if I'm going to work this hard to create a client base, to be able to grow a business, I need it to be something where I am emotionally invested. I can get my clients emotionally invested in the experience, and so I decided at that point, I was like, I'm going to focus on the cultural aspect of travel. I know sometimes as agents, you hear when you first start, like, you need to niche down. You need to niche down. And I genuinely, as a marketer, as somebody who spent 20 years in marketing, it is very true. And I think the fear for a lot of people is if I niche down, I'm going to eliminate a lot of other possibilities or a lot of other clients. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes there's certain clients you probably don't want to be working with, and I think you have to be honest with yourself about that. But the true reality of it is you're really not going to eliminate as many people as you think. You're still going to have people come to you for other types of travel experiences. I have clients who come to me, or prospective clients who come to me for like Disney or destination weddings. I don't do either one of those, and I'm very honest about it because I know that is not the space that I want to play in. I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the expertise, and so I don't take them on, and I will refer them elsewhere. But it helps me to know that my brand is getting out there and people are aware, and therefore they might not be looking for that cultural experience in that moment, right? They're looking because they're getting married, or they're looking because they want to take their kids to Disney. But I know that the time will come when they may want that cultural experience, and I'll be top of mind for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. There is that connection, especially you were talking about the honeymooners, and okay, so I got married very young, and we didn't have a lot of money. But the day that evening when we got to our destination for our honeymoon, we ate at Red Lobster. And now every year on our anniversary, we go eat at Red Lobster,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So they're going to want you to help recreate that experience, or they're going to want to go back to the same place or whatever, because there's that emotional connection you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just emote, and that's what travel does. I mean, think
Mhm.
about it. It gives you kind of like, it taps into all of your senses. It taps into your sight, your smell, your touch, everything. And every time that you have a similar experience, it brings back those memories, and that is one of the strongest connections you can have to something, or to anyone.
That's
So
true.
I encourage agents to kind of look at their relationship with their clients that way, and how do you create those type of memories and those type of experiences that whenever they have them, you come back into their mind in some capacity, right? Because they tie that experience to you. So even if you're not focused on cultural travel, maybe what you focus on family vacations or beach vacations, there's still a way to emotionally tap into that,
Mhm.
right? So you could, something as simple as, like, if you have a family trip, you could just, even if you set up one experience for them that they could have as a family, they're going to remember that forever. And the likelihood is the next time they come back to you, they might ask for something similar. If it was a really good experience and a memory that they can relive together as a family, they'll want that again.
Yeah.
Absolutely, for sure. I uh I also so I wanted to talk a little bit about my cultural passport email packages and how that came to be, because it really closely ties into what I do. So I was talking one day with another agent, and we were having like a conversation about moving our businesses forward, and she was feeling a little, I think we all go through these peaks and valleys in our business, where sometimes we're kind of like, what am I doing, like, i'm not I'm not having the best month, or it's been a rough go or whatever. So we were just having conversations, and we started talking about some of the things that we would like to do, or some of the things that we currently do. And I was sharing with her that for my clients, when they travel, I create a series of email sequences where I help to educate them on the destination that they're going to, and not just educate them from a, hey, look out for this, look out for that, but more so from a cultural perspective. So I started, when I started doing this, I was thinking about what are the pillars of culture, or at least that's how I define them, right? And I started thinking about what are the things that define a culture. So things like religion, food, social etiquettes or values, the music, the art. I don't know if you could hear my dog. She's like pounding on the door.
I don't hear her now.
Okay. So I started thinking about, like, what are those pillars, and how can I add value to my clients as they're prepping for this trip, right? That they're excited about. How can I add value? How can I send them something that sits with them, even if they don't read it immediately before their trip, but even, they know that they can go back to it as a resource during their trip, or whatever the case may be. And so I came up with an email sequence that I would send to a client starting about maybe 6 weeks out before their travel. And each email covers a different aspect of the culture for the destination that they're going to. So the first one is more of an intro. It's kind of like, here's what you can expect email. And it talks about, it just gives a kind of an overview about the destination. And then it says, over the next few weeks, you're going to get the following emails. And then the second email talks about language. Language is it's a big deal, because it's how you communicate, right? And it's central to any culture. And so I talk a little bit about what is the main language in that country, what are some of the other languages that you can expect to find throughout the country, including like any dialects or things like that. For instance, like Mexico, everybody knows that Mexico is the Spanish is the main language in Mexico, but a lot of people don't know that they actually have like 30 plus languages in the country. If you go to different parts of Mexico, Mexico is huge, right? And has all different types of areas, regions and so forth. So I talk a little bit about that. And then I include, for the main languages, I include like a little language guide with main phrases or things that you would want to know when you're traveling, like where's the bathroom, hello, thank you, and the phonetic spelling of how to say those things in that language. Then I followed up with an email about religion. Religion is central to any culture. That it bleeds over. You just can't help it, right? Particularly because there are a lot of countries where there is a main religion and it plays a role in their laws and, you know, how they go about their day to day. So I include that, and then I have another email that covers food, and I talk about main dishes that you should try in that culture. Originally, when I first started, I was like, oh, I'll give some restaurant recommendations. The problem with restaurant recommendations is that restaurants come and go, and we saw that through COVID, right? And so having to constantly update that is exhausting. It's too much work. Also, restaurants go in and out of fashion. Sometimes, you know, a restaurant can change management and then all of a sudden it's not that great. And here you are recommending it and you don't realize that there's something that happened on the back end that you have no control over. So I was like, how do I tie them to the food without really tying myself to something that I can't control? And so I thought, hey, I could just focus on the dishes that are native to that country that people could try. You could go to a different restaurant and ask for it if it looks like something appetizing that you would want to try. And I give a little bit of background for each dish, how it's tied to the country from a cultural perspective and so forth. Then I have another email on, I just recently added tipping as an email, because obviously that's a big question that you're going to get from a lot of clients, like, do I have to tip? What is the tipping standard and so forth? And you gave me a great suggestion, which was to also include it, you know, US dollars are easily, you can use US dollars in any, you know, in the destination as well. So I'm going to be incorporating that as well. And then I have one email on social values and etiquettes. There's a lot of cultural faux pas that we are not aware of when we travel to different countries, things that you should or shouldn't be saying or doing. Things as simple as like personal space. You know, one of the things I've learned as I've traveled to over 60 countries is like what's personal, what I consider to be appropriate personal space for me is not the same for somebody else in another country, and you have to make those adjustments when you travel. In certain countries, standing next to somebody really close is normal. It's not considered, you know, an issue. But for Americans, we have a certain distance that we consider like, don't get into my personal space.
In our bubble.
Exactly. So simple things like that maybe, you know, somebody who's traveling may not have considered, but they should be aware of. And then I have another one that covers like art, history, and music, and things to look out for, things to consider, things to think about when you're traveling. And then there's another one on apps that you should download before you go that can help to facilitate your travels a little bit, or make it more seamless. And then recently I've added practical tips. So these are just kind of tips that don't really fit anywhere else, but you should be aware of. Things like, you know, if you're in Italy and you purchase your ticket, not online, but if you purchase your ticket for the train or for the bus, you need to validate that ticket because you could get fined otherwise, right? Or things like, certain countries, it is law that you carry your passport with you, right? So those kind of little tips and bits that you may not, just in the course of you doing your work and curating this trip, you may not be thinking about those things, but they're important for your customer to know. And then the last one that I've added, I'm sorry?
Or we may not even know those to share.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much information. It's just, you know, to have it in one place is kind of nice. And then the last one I've added is more for countries where fashion or what to wear is a major consideration. I've added an email on respecting local culture through your fashion and how to dress, what to wear. So places like Egypt or Dubai or, you know, like Saudi Arabia, like those Middle Eastern countries where that is a major consideration, you need to be aware of those things. I've added that email as well. So it's grown. It started off as maybe like 5 or 6 emails, and now it's gone to like 9 or 10. But the beauty of the package is that you can choose what you want to share and what you don't want to share, right? They're all individual emails. You can add a little bit of your own voice and your tone to the emails if you want to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. They're already kind of built out for you. They're a little bit more formal because I could have added my own voice to it, but I tend to be a little bit more casual in my communication sometimes, and not everybody communicates that way. So I stuck to the more formal tone in the emails. And so I've slowly been growing out that database of destinations. I was sharing this with that agent that I was talking to, and I was like, oh, I do these email sequences. And she's like, what? She's like, yeah, I create these email sequences for my clients to kind of prep them for their trips. And she's like, you should be selling those to other agents. And I was like, I just assume everybody does that. And she's like, no. She's like, no. She's like, I don't even know how you find the time to do it. I was like, I just added it to my process. And I figured if I created once for a destination, then I just update it every so often. I don't have to keep creating every time I have a client traveling to that destination. So she was really like the impetus for me to get this going. And then it was kind of like, how do I like format this? How do I package this to actually be able to sell it? And so Cultural Passport was born. And here I am a few months later. I just launched them in April. So and it's been a slow burn, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. I think as more and more travel agents become aware of it, hopefully they'll find it as, useful and something that a resource that they can turn to when they have clients who they want to kind of get one excited about their travels, two kind of prep them and inform them and educate them, and three, cement your expertise as a travel advisor, right? And your knowledge, and let them know, like, look, I'm giving you all this added value and information. Because I see our role, sometimes I cringe at calling us travel agents, not because it's a bad thing, but because I feel like it sounds so transactional. We are not transactional. We are consultants, we are advisors. And that is how we should approach our role. I feel like the moment that you, in thinking about my business, I was like, if I take a transactional approach to this, I am not going to be able to stand out from my competitors, or from an Expedia or a booking.com. Like, how am I any different? Right. Whereas if you're offering guidance and value and knowledge, and you are really taking an interest and really advising and consulting, that is going to set you apart. Just when somebody comes to you and wants to talk to you about price, now you have something to say to them. I'm not competing on price. I compete on the value and the expertise that I bring to the table and the guidance that I'm offering you. And by the way, my customer service, right? The ability to be there for you at any given point in time during your travels to help you with whatever situation might arise.
Yeah.
So to me, I prefer to call us travel advisors. I use them interchangeably. I know everybody does, but I sometimes feel like travel agent sounds a little bit more transactional, and it takes people back to what a travel agent used to be, which wasn't bad, but at the time, they didn't have to compete with the online, with the OTAs of the world,
or the DIY stuff either. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So for me, I think the travel advisor just it creates a different idea in somebody's mind of who you are and what you bring to the table. So I prefer that name. But like I said, I'm just as guilty of using the terms interchangeably.
And you are showing that value in these emails that you're talking about. You're giving them the emotional connection that you spoke of earlier. You are, I think, encouraging curiosity as well. So
Yes.
I was just before we did this morning, I was reading back through the Dominican Republic one that I have, and there is enough there that if that's all they do is read those, then there's plenty to take their trip and still get, I think, more out of it than they would have otherwise. But there's also just enough to pique the curiosity. And oh, you know what? That is really fascinating. Why did they get that way? Or what, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Where they can go and do more research if they want to. And that is going to build that emotional connection. And it's going to, I mean, we've already seen our world get smaller, right? We can get places in hours instead of days and all of that. So our world is already getting smaller, but it's the connection with the people that is, we've got the technology. Now we just need to have the people make the world smaller. And I think that what you've got going will help with that.
Thank you. I absolutely agree. I think if anything, even if you go to the Dominican Republic and you don't leave your resort, if you at least consume that content, that information, it gives you a way to open dialogue with folks who work on the resort, who are from that country, right? And be able to engage and ask questions. And it gives you a little bit more insight into the culture and the people. And like you said, why do they do those things? Why do they behave this way? Why do they value what they value? And that to me is part of travel. I feel like anytime you travel, it's an opportunity to learn and to come back with just that much more knowledge. So why would you not take it, right? Like I don't know.
It enriches.
Huh?
It enriches your vacation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in the blog that I wrote in, I talked a little bit about the travel versus the traveler versus the vacationer. And I wanted to be very careful with that because I don't think there's anything wrong with vacationing. I think we all need time to recharge. We all need time to rest. If anything, it makes us better to have that downtime. And I think there's a time and a place for both. I think there is a time, I've gone on vacations where I do nothing but sit on the beach, and that's okay too, right? But sometimes your soul is calling for something different. And if that's the case, then maybe a travel experience is what it will fulfill that, and that opportunity to kind of get out there, savor local cuisines, participate in a traditional workshop, go to a festival, engage in a ceremony, sit down in some local place and talk to the local people, and or listen to them play their music and dance with them. Like that, again, those are the things that keep those, like you, those memories will live on in your mind forever.
I agree. That's great. How many countries do you currently have in your
Oh,
cultural passport series?
I don't know the total count right now. I want to say I have like about 20 right now. And I've been kind of I go back and forth because, for instance, like I have Italy, and Italy is very different regionally. You're
Right.
just, the food is different, the experiences are different. And I did them all as one, and I feel like I couldn't really go as deep because I kind of combined it all into one. And so now I'm kind of taking a slightly different approach with other areas or other destinations where, like, for instance, for Greece, I just did one for Athens, because the reality of it is what you're going to experience in Athens is going to be very different than what you're going to experience in the Greek islands. Yes, there is some overlap, but there are some, like I said, regional differences that you should take into account. Same thing with Mexico. I have one for Cabo San Lucas. I have one for the Cancun and Riviera Maya region. And when I do Mexico City, it'll also be different because the foods that are eaten are different. The certain etiquette things are different. So you have to take that into account when you're traveling to those destinations. And it becomes a little bit too cumbersome or overwhelming if you try to put it all into one. So I'm playing around with that right now to see, but I'm also conscious because I don't want travel advisors to be like, oh my God, like I just spent, for Cabo and now I have to do Cancun. It's not that I'm trying to get more money out of it. I just am conscious of those differences, and I want to make sure that whatever information you're imparting on your travelers, that it's accurate, and it's not just, you're just not kind of like vomiting all over them with stuff that they might not
Right.
need.
We don't want to tell the clients about Cabo Wabo and get them all excited when they have to go to Cocobongo instead.
I mean, anybody who sells Mexico knows, like, I've had this conversation with travelers where they're like, oh, I want to go to Cabo San Lucas. And I'm like, okay, well, talk to me a little bit. Let's take a step back. Talk to me about what kind of experience you're looking for, right? Because I want to make sure that this is right for you based on what you're looking for. And then they'll be like, well, I want warm waters and I want to be able to go to the beach. And I'm like, yeah, then Cabo is not that. Like, it's beautiful. And there's some swimmable beaches, but for the most part, it's the Pacific Ocean. It's colder waters. You're not getting the turquoise blue that you're going to get in Cancun or in Playa del Carmen or in the Caribbean. And then they're like, oh, so it's just those things. I mean, that's more geography specific. That's not cultural in sense, but you have to take those like nuances into account. It just is part of the course. So
For sure.
So I know in our conversations, I was also sharing with you that one of the things that I'm looking to expand from here. I spent 20 plus years working in advertising and marketing. So I have a extensive knowledge in this area. And much of those years, I actually did email marketing for companies like American Express and Verizon and big pharmaceutical companies, which today I probably would not go back to pharma, but given where my values stand. But anyways, I got to work with some major companies and really kind of learn about email marketing, specifically like using email marketing for retention purposes, retaining your clients, and also from a loyalty perspective. And then I did some lead generation as well, which is obviously acquiring new customers. I have to be careful sometimes if I start to use marketing lingo and people are like, what are you talking about? Like,
Right.
So I did that for many years. And one of the things that as I speak to more and more travel advisors, is I realize that a lot of us are not using email marketing to our advantage. It is a marketing channel that, when used properly, to me is like one of the ones that should be on everybody's list. It is 40 times more effective than social media. That's not to say you shouldn't be doing social media, because I think every channel has its role in your marketing mix, right? And so it's just a matter of how you want to utilize each one. But it is 40 times more effective. The ROI is considerably higher. There are advantages to it from the perspective of, like, to me, your website and your email list are the two most important assets any small business owner can have. Your website obviously is your online storefront. It's where people are going to go to verify that you are who you are and that you have a business and that you're legitimate, right? And you go, and that's where they're going to get information about you and be able to hopefully register to do a consultation with you, and etc. Your email list is yours and no one can take it from you. There's no algorithm to worry about. You have a direct channel to each of your prospects and your clients alike. And you can communicate with them when you like, how you like, I mean, not how, but when you like, how within reason, because there's obviously like laws that don't allow you to spam people and stuff like that. But it is a direct channel, and it meets the client or the prospect where they're at on their time frame, when they're ready to take in the message, right? It helps you generate sales. It helps you enhance your customer engagement. Using things like newsletters, you can continue that, you can have an ongoing dialogue. You can acquire customers, you can create brand awareness, and you can reward customer loyalty as well. So it's this one channel that allows you to do all these different things, and it's so cheap. Like, what are we paying for our marketing platform? Maybe at the lowest end, maybe $12.99 a month, right? If you have, like, I don't know what MailChimp is today, it might be $14.99, or on the higher end, maybe like $35 a month, but it's cheap compared to other. I mean, you think about running Facebook ads, it's going to cost you considerably more, and there's more risk, and you're kind of at the mercy of whoever Facebook wants to show your ad to. Same thing with your social media. You could have a group of 18,000 people, but if the algorithm decides it doesn't want an algorithm, a lot of people might not see your messaging. But in your email, it's going to land in everybody's inbox, and they're going to be able to see it when they're ready to, and they can take their time consuming your content or consuming your message. So I have, because I have this experience in email marketing, I understand how to utilize it in different ways. I am looking for different services that I can provide for travel advisors to be able to really take advantage of that channel. And I want to do it in a very cost effective, like a low cost manner, because one of the things that irks me as a small business owner is like, and I get it, there's tons of resources out there and everything has its place and its role, but it's like, I feel like every time I look at things, it's like, it gets more and more expensive. And I'm just like, oh, I just want to, sometimes you just want to do something easily, simply at a low cost and not have to stress about, oh my God, like, where am I going to cut out of my budget to be able to actually incorporate something that is important to my business and I need to be doing on a regular, consistent basis. The other thing I would encourage travel advisors to think about is, I know email can be overwhelming, just in terms of like, oh, I don't know how to work this technology. I don't know what to write. I don't know where to start. Don't try to boil the ocean. You don't need to figure it all out on day one. The beautiful thing about email is that it's a long-term game. Okay, it's all long-term, and it gives you the opportunity to really kind of test and trial things little by little and in bite-sized pieces, so that you can then evaluate it and see what works and what doesn't work. And you don't have to have it all figured out. Like, listen, I'll tell you, I played around with different lead magnets for a while. I did a lead magnet on groups and how to plan a group. Like, what are some of the things you need to take into account when you plan a group? I did a lead magnet with like money saving tips. I did everything. And then one day I was like, and here's another reason why you should niche down, right? One day I was like, I'm going to do a lead magnet tied to cultural travel, because that's what I focus on. That's my message. My message is consistent in everything I do as it pertains to that. And I said, I'm going to do a lead magnet about cultural travel. I'm going to pick a destination that is super popular and a lot of people want to go to. So I chose Italy. And I did my lead magnet on 10 cultural activities that you can incorporate into your itinerary that you may not have considered. Things like do a painting on a Venice canal, like while you're on the canal, like paint, like, with an artist, like those kind of things. Go to a quartet playing in a museum. I mean, in a church that's in the hometown of that composer, like those kind of things. And so I did this lead magnet. I put it out there, and I was like, I'm just testing this out. This is the beauty of email. It's like you can test all of these things out, right? It's the beauty of marketing. You're always testing. You should always be testing. So I put it out there. In May, I had an email list of 350 people. I was proud of my email list because my unsubscribe rate was really low, which to me indicated that they value the content I'm sending them, right? The open rates, I had open rates of 40-50%. So I knew people were reading my content and they weren't unsubscribing, so they found value in it. So I had a 350. I was like, oh, this is a good quality list, but you always trying to grow your list. I put this lead magnet out. Today, I just checked my email list 2 days ago. I'm almost at 1,500 people. Just the power of one lead magnet that I decided I was going to test. So now I've grown my list by 5-fold, right? Like from 350 to almost 1,500. And now it's funny because I think all of us I'm very analytics driven. So I constantly am looking at results because I want to see how can I make adjustments. And so I start to see like my open rate goes down, my my subscribe rate has gone up a tad bit, but not a lot. But I also understand that that's normal as your numbers increase, right? Like certain things are going to shift. And so now what that does is it challenges me to come up with new content and new information and new ways to engage this huge list of people. And so I'm now looking at, okay, what is the next phase of my email marketing? How am I going to do this? So I challenge and I encourage all travel advisors to really dig into your email marketing, use it to your advantage. It has so many benefits. I was mentioning to you, Debbie, that one of the things I'm working on is an email marketing membership. I want to make it low cost. I do, because I want to make sure that people can take advantage of it. I want to eliminate the challenge of, I don't know how to set up my technology, and I want to eliminate the challenge or the hurdle of, I don't know what to write. So I want to create these templated newsletter articles or emails that you can use to promote destinations or to promote offers or to promote group trips. Be able to kind of use these swipe templates where you can kind of pick them up. If you need to kind of, you will have to add some of your own information, because what one travel advisor is doing, the other might not be doing, but it's simple, it's fast, it doesn't require a lot of like in thinking, like what we talk about today, you know? So I was working on trying to launch that at the end of August, but I told you that so I'm huge into astrology. I like review my transits every week because I want to see like what the energy looks like in the sky so I can use it to my benefit in my business. I know it's very woo-woo, but I love it, and it's proven to work for me. So I saw that we're going into Mercury retrograde today, and Mercury retrograde, for those that don't know, is not a time to start something new. Never. It is a time to reassess, to recharge, to sit back, reevaluate things, really kind of set the structure and the foundation of whatever it is that you want to put out there. And then once Mercury goes back, comes out of retrograde, which is September 14th, then you put things out into the market. So a little bit of astrology knowledge there.
Whatever works for you, Amarilis.
So I'm looking to now launch that beginning of mid-September, and be able to give travel advisors another resource to be able to utilize to get them a little bit further along in their email marketing. Like I said, don't try to boil the ocean. If you have your email platform up and running and you have a list, just start by sending a newsletter once, maybe twice a month. It doesn't have to be anything super extensive. It can be a quick article. It can be a quick update on what's going on, where you're traveling to, what are you working on. People really want that kind of like insight into your life and what you're doing. They feel like they're closer to you when they have that, right? So it doesn't have to be something super extensive. I think sometimes we overwhelm ourselves with thinking like, oh my God, it has to be this huge, like elaborate thing. So start there. If you don't have an email list, start with evaluating some different platforms. You can use something like MailerLite or MailChimp, which has free versions of their system to start, so that you're not, you can kind of figure it out a little bit without having to pay any money. And then as you're ready to kind of like evolve a little bit more, and then you can go to the next plan up, which for both of them is not that expensive. I think it's like $15.99. And then think about a lead magnet something of value that you can give to people for free, for them in exchange for their email address. It should be tied to your niche, something that you're well informed in, you're well-rounded in, you can talk to and provide some value. Don't be afraid to give some knowledge and value for free. I know, so trained to be like, no, I promise, like people, the right people will find you, and they will value it for you, and they will stay with you, and they will become your ambassadors. I think as you create that relationship and that loyalty, you start to gain more ambassadors who will speak your name out into the universe and to people, and you'll get client referrals that way as well. So I encourage you, take one baby step. You don't, like, the days are going to go by anyways. So I always say, like, just take one step in the direction that you want to go in. It doesn't need to be elaborate. You don't need to do everything. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just one step at a time. And you know it, a year later, you'll be like, oh my God, I have a whole email program running. I have an email list. I have figured out what content, like for now, what content works, what content doesn't work. And you'll look back and you'll be like, wow, I can't believe I did all of this. So I encourage
the power of automation. When like your cultural passport emails, you said it, when I add this person to the list for Cancun, then they start getting those emails automatically. You don't even have to think about it anymore.
Exactly.
So
You just schedule them. I take on my to-do list when I have clients traveling, like the next month. At the beginning of the month, I sit down and I kind of look at what's happening this month, what's happening next month. And then I say, oh, I have these clients traveling. Let me schedule their emails. I actually created like a process list for all my trips for my clients. And every time I do something related to the trip, I go in and I check it off. And one of the items I have on that list is schedule my cultural passport emails. And so, like you said, you just go in, it takes 10 minutes to schedule them. And then you don't have to think about it. They're going off while you're sleeping or while you're working or while you're doing whatever you're doing. So it's great.
you don't have to worry about missing one. So
exactly. And that's the beauty of email marketing too, is you do the same thing. I batch create all my content for my email marketing at the beginning of the month. I know what articles I'm going to write. I know what emails I'm sending, because I've gotten to a place where I have like a monthly email that I send out that talks about my 3 favorite travel products, right? I have tons of travel products that I enjoy, but so every month I choose 3 and I talk a little bit about like little blurbs of like why I love this product. And then I include an affiliate link in there. And hello, now you have like another revenue source coming in. Right? I mean, I'm not making gangbusters money on it, but I'm making something. So,
yeah.
and can I just tell you, sometimes you don't really realize like how many people are actually listening or reading what you send, or you have an idea. But I have been at like friends' parties where I have like acquaintances or people who are on my email list, or they're on my Facebook group, or they see me talking, going on lives and talking, and then they'll come to me like, I had someone say to me a few months ago, they're like, I buy every product you recommend for travel. And I was like, really?
Oh, then you're the one. Okay, thanks.
Seeing, right? So it's like sometimes you think that your voice is not being heard, and it is like you are resonating with people. They trust you, they believe in you, so I use my email marketing to be able to share that type of content. I do another series every month, 1 email every month. I do another one where I share 3 ways to save money when traveling. Simple things like, hey, if you're traveling and you're going to pay and they're going to ask you to convert, like, do you want to pay in US dollars or do you want to pay in the local currency? Always choose the local currency. It's more beneficial for you, for your bank to do the conversion than the person who owns that point of sale terminal or the ATM, right? You're going to get a favorable conversion. So it's simple things like that a lot of people actually don't know and they're confused by. I think sometimes we think everybody knows this, everybody knows this, but in actuality, most people don't.
Yeah, yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, so all those little tidbits of information and knowledge that you have, you can put it into an email and create it. And by the way, you can also use that for your social media. So it's like you're not recreating content, you're just using content across different channels in different ways.
Adults, that's how we learn, right? The repetition. So
exactly.
If I see it 3 or 4 places, I might actually remember it.
Actually, people say this is something that's been valid for years in marketing. People need to see something at least 8 or 9 times before they act or before they remember. So when you think that I'm posting this on social media and I feel like I'm being repetitive and I feel like I'm being annoying, you're not. Most people, they see it. You got to remember, people are being bombarded with information and content and on a regular, minute to minute basis. So repetition is just, it'll help to make the message stick. And that is why again, email is so great because it allows you to get straight to the source. You're not counting on other factors to help you get that message across. So I'm hoping to launch this program in the middle of September. If you're interested and you want to be notified when I launch it, you can go to taculturalpassport.com and sign up there for my email list. And I will, I'm going to send an email. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to send an email to everyone when it launches, and I'm actually going to offer a founder's rate when I launch it. So if you're on the email list, you'll be able to sign up for considerably less than what the ongoing rate will be per month. And you'll be grandfathered into that as long as you're a member. And it'll be, I promise, it will be really low cost. Like I'm not trying to make this super expensive. I want everyone to really take advantage of email and what it can do for your business. So
yeah, I understand that completely. That's how I felt about TA Toolkit too.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be really, really affordable. I mean, we all know that when you first get into the business, that's when you need some tools like that, especially. And then, but you can't afford it because the money's not coming in yet.
exactly.
So, you know, if you can afford a Starbucks once a week, you can afford TA Toolkit. You can afford
Yeah.
some of these other things. So, and that's a nice thing too about Cultural Passport that I want to make sure that people know is that you not only have it out there for them that they can reuse over and over. Every time that you have somebody going to that particular destination that you purchased, you can reuse it. And that when there's a change, you make updates and let people know, hey, it's been updated. You don't have to buy it again. You
send
just
it.
go and download the new content.
I automatically send it with the new content. I outline what is new about it. And I'll, you know, if it's a new email, I'll say there's a new email. You don't have to rebrand everything again to your colors and your logo. You just need to do this one email, add it into your sequence, and you're good to go. So, you know, I had someone question me about my pricing for Cultural Passport. I stand by my pricing for it because it is, I spend a lot of time crafting those emails. I do a lot of research. I don't know everything. I know a lot about places I've been to, but I don't know everything. So I have to do research. I have to dig into things. I want to make sure that I'm giving the right information. But what I did say to her is, I said to her, you know, yes, they are priced. They're a little higher than I think what she was probably hoping to spend. But I said to her, I spend a lot of time on them. They take me quite a considerable amount of time. But also, I said to her, look at it from a cost per use perspective, right? If you buy one, they're priced at $49.95. If you buy one, and let's say you have 8 clients over the course of a year going to that one destination, when you divide $50 by 8, what is it, like $6, $6.50, something like that? So technically, you're paying $6.50 per use, right, on that email. And then over time that just keeps going down. That cost per use goes down.
Yeah.
And
so you have 8 more next year, and now it's only $3 per use.
Exactly. And so and you're getting constant updates. Like, and one of the other questions was, how often are they updated? You know, culture is not something that changes drastically from day to day or from month to month or even year to year, right? It's a very gradual generational type of thing. The types of updates that I'm making are things like I'm adding practical tips. I'm adding an email on what to wear. I'm including like your suggestion of saying, you know, are US dollars accepted widely in that destination? Like those type of additions that I'm making. And so, like I said, when I do that, anybody who's purchased that particular destination, I automatically send them the update. So they know that they have the most recent version of it. And that is why I priced it as I did, because it's work. It's just me right now. So it takes a while.
Right. I totally, no, I think it's a reasonable cost for what you get. Definitely.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I think it's definitely a very reasonable cost for what they get.
Thank you. I try to be fair. I try to be, there's a part of me that obviously we're in business. We want to make money, right? We're not running a business. We're not for profit. But like you said, really can relate and resonate with the small business owner who's just starting, who doesn't really have a lot of funds and is trying to do as much as possible with very little. And I want to be of service in that way, in whatever way I can. And so, my husband tells me sometimes I'm too nice, but I'd rather be that way.
Oh, shoot. Well, our time is just about up. Do you have anything else that you wanted to make sure that they get, or?
No, I think I probably talked way more than I should have.
You did great. We got lots of kudos in the chat. So yeah.
Everyone. I was trying to focus on what I'm saying, so I wasn't really looking, but thank you, everybody. I appreciate your support and your and that you were on and interested and engaged.
And I know that we are going to have a lot more people that will, like I said, watch the recording. We do have it being recorded, so we'll have a lot more watching then, and hopefully you'll see some uptick, not only because it'll be good for you, but because it'll be good for them in their email marketing.
Oh, I hope so. And if you go on to TA Cultural Passport and you don't see a destination that you need because you have contract, reach out to me, send me an email. My email is on the website. Send me an email. I will respond. Let me know what destination, and we can work out a timing so that you can get what you need. I have a schedule in my mind, or I have an idea of like a list of like destinations, but I can move them around. There's no like absolute order that I have to go in. So
that sounds great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Amarilis. I really appreciate you being on, and thank you everyone who joined us today. And we look forward to seeing what you do with it next.
I can't wait. We'll see. All right, everyone. Have a great day.